All right, guys, welcome back to the FEX Toolkit podcast. On today's episode, we have Chris Smith, who's actually one of our consultants with the software, and Waylon. Waylon and Chris, I work with both personally, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So came on board working with you a couple of weeks ago to just try to promote one of the best apps on the market to the market. But in final expense, year 6, I believe it is, have a medium-sized group growing every day, and just an honor to kind of help contribute to what tool you've built and then share it with the marketplace.
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Joe, for having me on. And very appreciative to be able to jump on something like this with you and Chris. And again, like Joe said, I'm Waylon Artrip. Work closely with IFG and have a decent size agency and have a lot of people utilizing some of the technology that Joe and his partners are rolling out and working on. So I'm excited to kind of jump on this with these guys and cover some of the, I guess, intricacies and some of the changes we've seen here in the last 6-12 months and maybe a little further back, but some of the crazy things that have been happening.
Yeah, I guess that'll lead into our first question. And so for the pandemic, what I kind of did was just transition to over the phone. I'm in my call center now. That's kind of how I've adapted with my team. Chris, how have you and your agents, how has the pandemic kind of affected your business?
Well, we're still mostly face-to-face. I think that the first thing that it taught folks is to be good business owners. Save your money, have reserves, and be adaptable to changes. For longest time, Pennsylvania was literally illegal to sell face-to-face in. So when I realized I wasn't comfortable selling over the phone at home, I had to travel more. And I was uncomfortable traveling because I was used to working in Philadelphia. So I went to Maryland, to Delaware, which kind of expanded my comfort zone to be able to go out to places like Tennessee, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and teach and train in areas I've never been to. But the pandemic forced me out of my comfort zone, not necessarily to telesales, but different markets in the country.
Waylon, have you had a similar experience to Chris?
Yeah, so we kind of have a mixed bag, I guess, as far as our agency. We have some people that do focus on phone sales even previous to the pandemic. And obviously afterward, we had a lot of people transition from phone or from the field to phones, specifically. More of a strategic move, as Chris had mentioned. Like some states like PA, we're based right here in Ohio, so we have a pretty good footprint around this part of the country. And some states, it was illegal to go knock on doors, which is obviously kind of a speed bump for certain producers. So we had people either transition from the field to the phones, but we also did have people kind of stay in the field. We had a handful of people that stayed in the field, kind of kept on keeping on, if you will, and just kept hammering it. But definitely was a learning experience and getting used to the quote unquote new normal, if you will, of what is to be expected, how certain individuals are going to handle the pandemic, and what that looks like from a client to or from an agent to client relationship and vice versa. So obviously a huge learning experience, and kind of threw all of us, into a frenzy a little bit, especially agency owners, when you've got, hundreds of agents coming to you with like, the house is on fire. What are we going to do? The world is definitely ending. There's no way we can do this. All right, now let's take like a huge deep breath to get together collectively and figure out what we can do. And obviously just having the ability to go to the phones is even as an option is huge. But I don't even know if it would have been possible just a few years ago, realistically, with the lack of carriers, some of the technology that's now been introduced and some of those things. So yeah, I mean, it was a crazy time, but now it's like, again, the new normal, if you will, and everybody's kind of back to baseline of what they were kind of previously doing prior to the pandemic. Is kind of what it seems now.
It was interesting for us because direct mail, that was the first thing I noticed because I was on direct mail at the very, January when it kind of started happening. That was the first thing I saw was my direct mail, and Delaware County at least really slowed down. And from some of my agents saw the same thing. So we tried out Facebook leads. We're doing inbound calls now. So it really changed the way that we do business. We're still writing the same carriers and in fact, our production increased overall. But it was definitely interesting for us in this area and for a good reason. I mean, Chris, in Philadelphia, you actually cannot get in to some of these apartment buildings. Like they will not let you in if you're not a immediate family. And I've tried, they just won't. So, and then the clients don't want to come down and all that. So it is definitely different for us. We had to find different ways to market and doing the driveway approach. You can drive there, they see you. It's a little bit different than traditional face-to-face, but that's one thing that we did to kind of ease into it a little bit.
I just think people needed to be adaptable, and technology played a big part in that. Technology like keeping your client base organized because if you were afraid to adapt, you at least had a book of business you could fall back on, pull out a CRM or a spreadsheet and send out some letters to increase coverage, or just call people. Even if you didn't feel comfortable selling over the phone, you could sell your own clients, and just being adaptable to the situation.
Hey, Chris, what you said, I think that's I think most agents don't do that. I don't think most agents are actually working their books, but you do that pretty well. What's some of the strategies that you use to kind of work your book and generate more business?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, you don't want to ever unethically, or that's not the right word. You want to do everything ethically. So I'm not suggesting by any means going back and replacing good quality business that's on the books. Not what I mean. But there are situations, the first one is easy. You write somebody a guaranteed issue product just because that was what they could fit at the time. And then you find out that there's a first day coverage option or a better option. You can go back and improve their situation simply by finding the right product or their health improving. That's okay. Or you've got clients that have fallen off the books for one reason or the other. Service those clients and see if you can get them back into paying for their policy or a smaller policy. Then you've got the next level, small policy increases. These people will buy more coverage, and if you don't sell it to them, they'll buy it from somebody else. So be in contact with them to consider increasing coverage and building a book of business in a geographic market. I had a recruit call this morning, and I literally said, we have a home for a reason. You need to have a final expense home where you build your market and your book of business. You're not a homeless person where you scatter yourself across the country, never having any roots. So build a book of business in a geographic market so that when you have referrals through your book of business, you're not having to refer out somebody across the country. You can go see that person in your normal marketplace. So of course, in telesales, that wouldn't be a big deal. But in face-to-face sales, planting your roots locally also helps grow that book of business.
That's actually the reason why we put in the reminders feature into FEX Toolkit, is because that's so important and people just don't realize. Like if they bought from you, you don't talk to them for 2 years, I guarantee when you go back, it's going to be a Med Advantage. It's going to be something. Even if it's like a hospital indemnity plan, they're going to have bought something in the time that you haven't sat with them. So if you're not working your book, especially at a time like now where it's important to get every piece of business that you can, you're really going to be missing out on a lot of business.
Yeah.
So I think that, lead generation and going back to your current book, I mean, you already paid for the leads in most cases, so why not go back? I think is a big one. Waylon, have your agents kind of done the same? Is that kind of the same thing you teach?
Yeah, and I was going to kind of mention, to piggyback off of what Chris was saying, is the pandemic as a whole, I think, made a lot of, I guess, hobby-like agents that kind of perform this business as almost like a hobby, a little bit too passively, may have kind of opened their eyes a little bit to actually tracking their business, tracking their clients, tracking, their day in, day out, and kind of became a little bit more initiative toward actually knowing where those things go and knowing where your clients stand. Because that is extremely important. There's a massive opportunity and massive amount of profitability to be gained by just simply following up with your clients on a fairly regular basis. It isn't something you have to do every week or month or day or anything extreme like that, but every 6 months, every 12 months, saying hello, sending out a card, a birthday card, a Christmas card, those small things can pay huge dividends. As Joe had already said, you've paid, $20, $25, $30, $40 for these leads. Why not harvest every dollar that you can out of them? Because again, they're going to have purchased something from someone else for a reason that you likely as an agent can also help them with. So now we've seen a lot of agents. Again, it was kind of a mixed bag. We had one side where we did have agents that were doing a great job of tracking their business. They knew, they had date of birth, they had all these things saved in a nice format to where they could follow up with these clients. And then there was a whole other end of the spectrum, the people that had 300 clients that had no idea where to start. They were, how do I log into my carrier portals? How do I check them? And to be very honest, I mean, a lot of the carrier, well, not a lot, but a handful of the carriers that a lot of the more prevalent carriers don't even track your book of business for you, which some people didn't know that until they had to know that and needed to contact those people. So doing something as simple as having a name, date of birth, and some, just basic information of that client's coverage that they picked up is huge for when they call you back and things. And, obviously with FEX Toolkit that you guys are offering, it's the CRM is pretty sweet. I think you guys just introduced like the mass transfer option where you can like CSV in a file and drop in a whole, kind of CRM, if you will, of all the clients that you've built out. So just something as simple as that, as knowing the carrier, knowing the face amount, knowing a little bit about their health when they do contact you, or you contact them and they reach back out. It just makes you so much more efficient, and just really the big thing is more profitable. And that's all that matters at the end of the day, is we're all running a business here independently. So every dollar matters. Every dollar in that doesn't cost too many dollars out is a big thing. So
Yeah.
by just tracking your business and continuing to kind of follow up with those clients that you've already kind of built into your book of business is a huge thing for sure.
Yeah, I think that when I first started in the business, I thought I was immune almost, because you have this set of carriers, you think you know everything. I've walked into houses with Chris Smith's, because we work in the same area, with his business card on the door, and he's one of the best agents in the business. Like, he sells everyone every dollar premium that, like, he's done it, and these people send in more and more cards. So no one's immune. We're all like, if they send in one card to you, I guarantee they're going to be sending in another one, and if you can say anything you want, they're going to do it. So it's very important to keep track of that, because you want to be the next agent going in, not somebody else.
Yeah. I got a great follow-up on that one, because we're all kind of in the same market, and one of the other insurance YouTubers, Nick Frumpkin, ends up in my client's home in Chester. And Nick could have totally killed the price, offered more coverage, maybe a little bit close into contestability, but she's like, no, Chris is my agent. I'm gonna call him right now and see what his thoughts are. And she calls me from the home. I'm like, hey, Nick, what's up? We shooting a video on Friday or not? But that you build a relationship with the clients in a sense the best you can, so that when other opportunities come up, they call you for them. Before I got on this recording with you guys, I had a client call and say, I just want 10,000 more. Sir, you have 95,000. I'm not going to question why you want 10 more. Let's do it. So building that relationship so they know to call you first, and not, direct to consumer companies or another agent.
I think the business card thing that you do, because I did the same thing. All you have to do is go on Amazon. They're like, it's like $5. You get these magnets. You just stick your business card on them. It's the best marketing thing, because you can go on their fridge and just keep it there. You're always in front of them. So that's why if every house I go into that has a Christmas policy, they have the thing on their fridge. So if you're not doing that, I think it's a great way to market, and it's cheap. It doesn't, it's a few bucks every few months.
Marking your territory.
Exactly. And it works well. So the other thing I wanted to go into was the role of, because I think that we all in this business, or a lot of us at least, struggle with technology. I don't want to act like I'm some tech genius. All I do with FEX Toolkit is the data side. I don't know what HTML even stands for, so I can't talk about that. But I think that, Americo, I think, was the first e-app, the first one in like 2016. So it's only really recent that all this technology came into the business. And at least for me, my upline's Josh Jensen, and where Chris at our old IMO was very much so buy your leads, no paralysis by analysis, just buy your leads, have a basic understanding of the carriers, get a few contracts, and go to work. And for most agents, I don't want to, act like that you need to have some piece of fancy technology to tell you all the underwriting and all this, because you don't. At the end of the day, I think it is going out and going to work. But Chris, what do you think? Because I think, Chris, both you and Waylon, you have your agents using it. What do you think what are the pros and cons to having technology like this in the hands of, your agents? And you two are both very, in touch with your agencies.
Absolutely. So I'll be very honest, and I don't think it's bad to say it. When you first shared me the idea of trying out FEX Toolkit, I'm like, I didn't open it. I didn't play with it. I'm thinking this is probably going to suck. It's going to be an ugly spreadsheet that takes too much time. And I'm just going to be polite, but I'm not even going to look at it. And then one day I opened it up. I'm like, holy cow, this doesn't suck.
That's what you said. That was actually your text message is, this doesn't suck. That was what you said.
I'm like, well, wait, this is really useful. And it's either very simple if you want it to be, or very in-depth if you need it to be. And that's important, because you want someone just to be able to run a rate, figure out who has the lowest rate in the situation, because there's tons of agents that don't even have a multi-quarter, like something that could run all of their carriers all at once. They literally have to go one app to the next app to the next app. And the client's sitting there the whole time thinking they have no idea what you're doing or why you're taking so long to come up with a price. Now you can literally type in their name or not their name, but their basic information and get the best option. Or if you get thrown into a situation where the person's on a anastrozole for breast cancer and you don't want to ask the question because someone asks it every day, you figure it out yourself. You type in anastrozole, you plug it in, and it says who that you're contracted with, who takes it. And then you learn how to find out the information for yourself. So you don't become paralyzed, but you've got the safety net to get into the field and get the job done and don't feel like you're out there on your own. So that's where I find a huge benefit to this. With other technology, good Lord, my CRM during the pandemic consisted of pulling boxes of old Transamerica apps out of a closet and searching through names. I didn't really have a good CRM, but I had a box. And then I had all of these paper applications because there was no e-application. I found a paper Gerber application. God rest its soul. Like, what is that? A Settler's Life paper application right before they had a voice signature. Like, these carriers didn't know what an e-app was, and they refused to look at it until the market just kind of shifted in that direction. So it's important that we become technology efficient with our CRM, with our toolkit tools, and with utilizing the agent websites. You know, just the fact that you can get on Toolkit and press a button and it takes you to the carrier e-app site saves you from that silly question of, how do I log into the Oxford e-app? Okay, how do you not know that? That's how you got contracted. Simple things like that go a long way, and you've integrated them all into one spot, which makes our lives more efficient, makes us look more professional in the home, and helps us be more profitable.
Absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback off of Chris there. So quick fun story. When I was 20, I had just left my captive company, bought about $400 worth of 2-year-old direct mail leads to go try and make a couple dollars, and was outdoor knocking in Southwest Ohio. At this point, again, this was 4.5 years ago or so, I had a trunk full of paper apps, a big binder full of folders, and a book bag full of more stuff. And then my back seat was full of trash and junk too. So that's how I started out. Long story short, going to my very first final expense sale ever. I never had a person field train me. It was just me. Client had COPD and she had a guaranteed issue policy. Well, turns out Trinity doesn't take COPD. Obviously didn't know that. I tried that first thinking, hey, they're cheap, I'll try it. Now, obviously knowing what I know now, I would have never even tried them. But, tried them, got graded, didn't take that offer. That I went to a surety, because when they God rest the surety's final expense sold, it's not even available now, but they kind of took COPD sometimes. Tried that, got declined, of course. So we're back to the third option, went trans, wrote the paper app. And this is after I'd already been to Office Max twice to print out paper applications and came back to this house. So my first final expense app took about 6 hours of me driving back and forth and getting declines on phone interviews and then trying to figure out how to write a paper app. So I say all that to say the things I would have done to have access to something that does the underwriting for me, that saves all of that client's information in a CRM so that I can access it at any future point, and that gives me the answers that I'm looking for and tells me where to go to do the actual application process for each carrier. It's absolutely invaluable. Again, I always go back to that story of me and my broken down Buick sitting outside of this little house in Washington Courthouse, Ohio. And I'm like, I literally couldn't even imagine what I would do if I had an iPad and that like FEX toolkit back then. It like literally would have been unbelievably different. That's all I can say is unbelievably different. And just having access to those things, again, the two things that I like probably the most for a new agent, and that's who I think this product is phenomenal for, not only seasoned agents, but I think for a brand new agent, this makes more sense than anything, because really the goal as a new agent is to, number one, get contracted and up and running. But right after you get contracted, the number two thing on your checklist should be to make money. Like, how do I get my first deposit from anybody? It shouldn't matter who or where or what. Like, how do I make money quick? And that's what makes it real. Because at first, when you first start, you're like, well, how do I get paid? When do I get paid? How does it work? We'll sell something and you'll figure it out. And this makes selling something a lot easier. It makes choosing the right product, brainless, because you're not doing that work. You're just following prompts and asking questions. And if you can't do that, you probably shouldn't be in sales in the first place. And second of all, it's telling you where to go to complete the process once it's chosen the carrier for you. And at that point, again, it's more brainless data entry. So this helps you to focus on the areas that actually make you money in this profession. And that is your, system as far as leads and ad spend and things. And then also secondly, your sales process. So focus on those and let FEX Toolkit kind of do the mundane stuff that realistically doesn't make you that much money unless you're writing AIG 50% of the time, then it's losing you money. And this will avoid you from doing that too. So just a lot of different levels to this where it will make you money just having access to it on the different features, whether it be the follow-up in the CRM or here's how you go to do the e-app without having to think about it or look through your 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different notes you've made on your iPad and your cell phone with writing numbers and links. You don't have to have that anymore. It's all in one kind of hub and it does it for you. So that's the biggest thing for me, is that one-stop shop for underwriting, client, kind of information retention, and also just telling you where to go to actually complete applications. So it's huge.
Yeah, that's kind of a good point because that's kind of what I tell people is because for a new agent, most of the time, a lot of the things that they ask, the answer is just get your leads, go in the house, call me if you have a question. That's at least how I did with most of my agents. Like you don't need to know everything, you really don't. But at least with the FEX toolkit, you can have them at least have you know that they're competent and they have an understanding. I can tell you myself because I had three brand new call center agents, just kind of as a thought experiment. I plopped them down in front of the software and they rate $25,000 a month. Now, obviously, they've been trained since then, but they were competent. I could sit them alone and know that they would at least be able to go to the app, and then I could help them if I had to. But the second part is that, Chris, I think from what you mentioned earlier, and Waylon, the carriers do care, and we learned actually that they do care about. You can't just throw apps at them. I had two agents actually,
Absolutely,
Prosperity, who got suspended because you open the applical like that dings them like $25, whatever it is, to run like the identity check. The carriers do care. So I think for some new agents, if you have the mindset, well, I'm just going to throw it here, and like that's sometimes a decent attitude, but you can't always do that. And then when you lose that carrier relationship, like if we lost American Amicable, that would be devastating for us because we pushed a lot of our business there. So it is something to be mindful of that you want to care about. You just don't want to throw something at Transamerican, hope it sticks. Like you really should have some kind of, understanding when you're going into at least an indication. And of course, as a brand new agent, sometimes you just don't know if you don't have the toolkit, but that is important. And then from Chris, what you mentioned, and Waylon, with the brand new agents, yeah, that's obviously very valuable for a new agent, but even for an experienced one, I mean, does every agent know that 3 high blood pressure meds with Liberty might push it standard, or the unwritten sentinel rules like the diuretics and the beta blockers can push it New Advantage 3? The stuff that we've picked up as agents and that we've put in there, it might not be something that every agent knows. And if that saves you from 1 app a month over the course of the year, that's 12 apps. Maybe you would have pushed GI or might not have otherwise had it all. So that, I don't like to say pays for itself, but it kind of does at the end of the day when you can add all that up.
in my opinion, it's this simple. If you purchase the software and you write one app, American Amicable, return a premium over an AIG that you would have written, it paid for itself for the lifetime of you being a final expense agent.
Yep.
Not just 1 year. Literally, it can make that big of a difference on multiple levels. I don't have to get into all of it, but you write 1 or 2 apps that you would have written AIG and you write them ROP, like FEX toolkit is paid for forever. So like just that's an easy way to look.
Or even as an agency owner, the fact that toolkit has a cheat sheet in it now, no agency owner should ever have to make their own cheat sheet anymore. They should never update their own cheat sheet anymore. They should outsource this task to toolkit to take care of for them because it's so time consuming. And there's no good way on a piece of paper to put 15 carriers and 30 major medical conditions. It just doesn't work.
And now this has saved me all of my Sunday evenings. That's what I would do every Sunday evening when I would get a new carrier or a new product or something that we would be adding, kind of to our agency lineup of carriers. It would take me minimally about 30 to 45 minutes per carrier to go condition by condition, line by line, to do that. And again, it wasn't exactly something I looked forward to doing it, a Sunday at 8:30 at night to 10 at night. Wasn't exactly a hobby of mine. It was just more out of necessity. And the best part about the one on toolkit is the fact that it's like easily searchable. I mean, you can do condition and it shows you every carrier and how they look at those conditions, what that look back looks like, and how those periods kind of align with everything. So yeah, that's huge. Something I didn't even really think of, but yeah, you've freed up my Sunday nights to now brainlessly watch football. So I appreciate that.
I'm glad. That's something that I found that well before FEX toolkit, I found like I was spending a lot of time. Like I could make in 30 minutes I spend in the day answering agent calls, I could make another few recruiting calls, or I could run another appointment. A lot of things you can do with that time that, you don't really necessarily need to be spending it on. So I think that kind of covers what I wanted to cover today. So I thank you guys for getting on, and hopefully we'll have another episode out for you guys in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome, man. Have a great day, guys.